The morning sunlight filtered weakly through Emily Carter's apartment window, painting soft streaks of gold across the wooden floor. The kettle whistled faintly in the background, but she didn't move to pour her tea right away. Her thoughts were elsewhere, drifting somewhere between the past and a future she couldn't quite see yet. It had been months since Emily's life had felt ordinary. Her days passed quietly: coffee, work, long walks home through city streets that once felt alive but now just echoed with memories. She wasn't unhappy exactly, just suspended, as if waiting for something she couldn't name. Her phone buzzed. A reminder for an upcoming work meeting. She sighed, rubbing her temple. Another day, another round of polite smiles and conversations that didn't really touch her heart. She loved her job, graphic design, but lately even her creativity felt tired. She kept telling herself it was just a phase. Everyone feels lost sometimes, right? Still, deep down, Emily knew it wasn't just about work. It was the quiet, the silence after years of noise, of people, laughter, connection. She missed the feeling of being seen by someone who understood her without needing explanations. As she sat by the window with her tea, the city moved below, buses groaning, people hurrying to jobs, the soft hum of ordinary life. She used to love watching the world wake up. Now, it just reminded her how still her own life had become. Her best friend, Claire, often teased her. "You're too careful, Em. Life doesn't wait for people who overthink." Maybe Claire was right. Emily had always been cautious with her choices, her words, her heart. Especially her heart. She had loved once deeply, maybe too deeply. But that story had ended quietly, without drama or closure. Just to people growing apart until they didn't recognize what they had. Since then, she'd promised herself she wouldn't rush into anything again, yet. There were days when loneliness whispered louder than reason, when she'd see couples laughing over coffee or sharing an umbrella in the rain, and something in her chest would ache, not envy, but longing. Still, she carried on. She was proud of her strength, even if it came with a touch of sadness. She told herself that maybe love wasn't something you searched for. Maybe it found you when you least expected it. That morning, she decided to stop by the little cafe on Maple Street before work, a place she hadn't visited in months. It had become her quiet retreat back when life was busier, when she needed space to think. The coffee wasn't extraordinary, but the place had a warmth that always made her feel at ease. The air outside was crisp, the kind of early spring chill that wakes you up better than caffeine. The streets glistened faintly after last night's rain, and the scent of wet earth mixed with blooming tulips from the nearby flower stand. When she entered the cafe, the bell above the door chimed softly. The sound felt comforting, familiar. The place looked the same: small wooden tables, soft music playing, a few regulars reading newspapers or typing on laptops. She ordered her usual, a latte with a touch of cinnamon. Then she found a corner table by the window. From there, she could see people passing by, strangers wrapped in their own stories. Some smiling, some lost in thought as she stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. She noticed a small notebook left on the edge of the table next to hers. It was worn out, the edges frayed, a few coffee stains on the cover. She looked around, wondering whose it was. Before she could ask, a man approached the table. He looked to be in his late 30s, tall, casual, but put together, with kind eyes that carried both warmth and something unspoken, maybe a trace of tiredness. "Excuse me," he said with a gentle smile. "I think you might be sitting at my table. I must have left this behind." Emily blinked, slightly embarrassed. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize." "Here, it's yours." He chuckled softly. "No worries. I was hoping it would still be here. That notebook's basically my second brain." She smiled, unsure why his easy tone made her feel lighter. "Well, I'm glad you found it. Losing your second brain sounds serious." That made him laugh. A warm, genuine sound that filled the quiet space between them. "I'm Ryan," he said, extending his hand. "Emily." For a moment, their eyes met, just long enough for her to notice the kindness behind his calm demeanor. It wasn't attraction, not exactly. more like recognition, as if she had met someone who understood the quiet parts of life, the pauses, the unspoken moments, the need to just be. He glanced at the chair across from her. Mind if I sit for a bit? Promise I'll behave. Emily hesitated for only a second before nodding. Sure. They talked first about the weather, then about work, then about small things that somehow didn't feel small at all. Ryan was easy to talk to. There was something grounded about him, the way he listened without interrupting, how he smiled softly when she spoke. As if her words mattered, by the time she looked at her watch, nearly an hour had passed. She stood reluctantly, realizing she'd have to rush to make it to her office. This was nice, Ryan said. Maybe I'll see you here again sometime? Maybe, she said, smiling, though she knew she wanted that maybe to be a yes. As she walked out into the cool air, she caught herself smiling again, the kind of smile that starts small but lingers. And for the first time in a long while, she felt something stir inside her, something soft, hopeful. And the following week felt a little different for Emily. It wasn't that her life had suddenly changed. Her routines were still the same. Her work deadlines still crowded her desk. And her small apartment still echoed with the same silence. But now there was something new in that silence. A quiet warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. She caught herself thinking about Ryan, not constantly, but often enough to notice. About the way he smiled when he listened, how his words carried an ease that calmed her. It wasn't about attraction or excitement. It was about peace, the kind of peace that comes from being around someone. Who makes the world feel a little less heavy. A few days later, she saw him again, same cafe, same corner table, as if time had quietly brought them back together. He was reading something in that worn-out notebook of his expression focused yet gentle, still guarding your second brain. She teased as she approached. Ryan looked up, surprised but delighted. Emily, I was hoping I'd run into you again. I was starting to think I'd scared you off you. Hardly. She smiled and took the seat across from him. From that day, their meetings became more frequent. Sometimes planned, sometimes accidental, or maybe it just felt accidental. The cafe became their shared space, a place where time slowed down just enough for them to breathe. They talked about everything and nothing. Music, childhood memories, the strange comfort of rainy days. Ryan told her he had grown up in a small coastal town where mornings smelled of salt and pine trees. He used to help his grandfather fix boats during summer breaks. Emily smiled softly. That sounds peaceful. It was, he said. I think that's why I love quiet places now. They remind me that not everything has to move fast to mean something. His words lingered in her mind long after he said them. She admired that about him, the way he found meaning in simplicity. When it was her turn to share, Emily spoke about her childhood too, how she used to paint beside her grandmother's garden, how she still kept an old sketchbook filled with drawings of skies and faces she never finished. Ryan leaned forward slightly. Do you still paint? Not much anymore. Life got in the way, I guess. Then maybe life owes you a few colors back, he said with a small grin. She laughed, not realizing until later how much that line stayed with her. Over time, their connection grew deeper. Not through big moments, but through small gestures. A shared laugh, a knowing glance, an unspoken comfort in each other's presence. There was something beautiful in the slowness of it. Something pure in the way they understood each other without needing to fill every silence. But sometimes, when Ryan looked out the window a little too long, Emily sensed a distance in his eyes, as though part of him was somewhere else, caught between past and present. One afternoon, after a long conversation about life's almosts and what-ifs, she asked gently, Ryan, can I ask you something? Of course. Have you ever lost someone you cared about? He hesitated, the smile on his lips fading into a quiet sigh. Yes, not in the way people usually mean, though. No one passed away. But I lost someone because I didn't fight hard enough to keep them. Emily nodded slowly, her heart tightening at the softness in his voice. Someone you loved? He met her gaze. Yes, a long time ago. We were engaged. I thought we had it all figured out, but life had other plans. She wanted to move to another city for work, and I didn't follow. I told myself it was about practicality, but deep down, I think I was scared. I wasn't ready then." There was no bitterness in his tone, only quiet regret. "I'm sorry," Emily said softly. "Don't be. It taught me what matters and what doesn't. Sometimes we only understand love after we lose it." His honesty touched her deeply. It reminded her of her own quiet heartbreak, the one she rarely spoke about. A relationship that had faded not from anger, but from distance. They had drifted apart until love became memory. And memory became silence. She didn't share all the details, but she said enough for him to understand. "I know that kind of loss. It's the kind that doesn't break you all at once. It just leaves you emptier, little by little." Ryan nodded. Exactly that. Their eyes met, not with longing, but with recognition. To pee? The weeks passed quietly, almost too quietly for Emily's liking. Their morning coffee meets had become routine, comforting, yet predictable. She enjoyed the familiarity, but a small part of her longed for something unexpected, something that would shake her out of her cautious rhythm. It was on a particularly gray Thursday morning that fate decided to step in. Emily had stayed late at the office, buried under a stack of design drafts that seemed endless. By the time she finally closed her laptop, the streets outside were slick with rain, reflecting the glow of streetlights like liquid gold. She hurried along the sidewalk, umbrella in hand, wishing she had left earlier. That's when she saw him, Ryan. He was standing under the awning of a small bookstore, hair damp from the drizzle, a light smile on his face. For a moment, it felt like a scene frozen in time. The world narrowed down to just the two of them. And Emily's heart skipped in a way she hadn't felt since their first encounter. "Emily," he called softly, stepping forward. His voice carried that familiar warmth, the same ease that made ordinary conversations feel extraordinary. She slowed, her umbrella tilting slightly as she approached. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," he said with a gentle chuckle. "I was just picking up a book. Thought I'd get some inspiration. And apparently, fate thought I should see you too." Emily laughed softly, shaking her head. There was something about the way he said it, casual yet meaningful, that tugged at something buried deep inside her. They walked together for a few blocks, sharing stories about small, seemingly mundane things, a new bakery that opened on 5th Street, a funny incident at his office, an unexpected phone call from an old friend. And yet, with each story, the air between them seemed to hum with something unspoken, something that had been waiting for this exact moment to awaken. After a few minutes, Ryan stopped and looked at her with an intensity that made Emily catch her breath. "Do you ever feel like life nudges you toward certain people, even when you're not paying attention?" Emily hesitated. "I think I've started to believe that lately." "Why do you ask?" "Because," he said slowly, "I think I've been waiting to run into you like this. Not in a planned way, not in a routine way. I mean, here, in the rain, just by chance. And yet it doesn't feel like chance at all." Her chest tightened. She knew exactly what he meant. That feeling of timing aligning perfectly, of coincidence that seemed intentional. The kind of feeling that makes ordinary moments feel extraordinary. For the first time in months, Emily let herself pause. She had been careful to protect her heart, to keep her emotions measured and steady. But something about Ryan's presence, his quiet honesty, soft-spoken intensity, made her feel alive in a way that was gentle yet electrifying. They ducked into a small cafe to escape the rain. The warmth of the shop enveloped them, mingling with the scent of fresh bread and brewed coffee. Emily chose a window seat again, as if instinctively drawn to the familiar view of the street outside. Ryan sat across from her, still smiling, still somehow grounding her in the middle of a chaotic world. "Emily," he began, his tone soft yet firm, "I need to be honest with you about something." Her heart skipped. She had learned over time that his honesty wasn't about confession or guilt. It was about trust, and she felt ready to hear whatever he needed to say. "I've been thinking about the past," he continued. "About the mistakes I made, the people I lost, and about you. Somehow you've become part of my present. And it's not just the comfort of routine. It's more than that. I care about you. More than I probably should admit out loud." Emily's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. She didn't speak immediately. Instead, she let herself absorb his words. They weren't dramatic or rushed, just simple, heartfelt truth. And in that simplicity, they carried a weight that felt bigger than any grand gesture. "I care about you too," she admitted finally, her voice soft but steady. "I didn't know I would, not so soon, but I do. And it scares me, because I don't want to lose it, even before it really begins." Ryan nodded, understanding perfectly. "I feel the same way. And I promise, I don't want to rush anything. I just want to be honest and take it one step at a time." The rain outside had slowed, leaving puddles that reflected the city lights in fractured patterns. They sat together in quiet companionship, letting the world fade around them. For the first time in a long time, Emily felt that their lives, messy, cautious, and shaped by past heartaches, could intersect in something real, something worth holding on to as they left the cafe. The city seemed brighter, not because the rain had stopped completely, but because their hearts had found a spark, subtle, steady, and profound. Days passed after that rainy evening. Yet Emily couldn't shake the feeling of their conversation. Ryan's words echoed in her mind, simple yet profound. "I care about you. More than I probably should admit out loud." She wanted to reach out to him, to see him again, to talk more about everything that had been left unsaid. But there was a hesitation she couldn't ignore, a quiet voice warning her to be careful. To protect the fragile calm she had built around her heart, Ryan, too, felt the pull of unspoken feelings. Every time he thought of Emily, he remembered her laughter, the warmth of her smile, and the way her eyes seemed to understand even the quiet parts of him. Yet he held back. He was careful with his heart, shaped by past mistakes and mischances. He didn't want to risk their fragile connection with words he wasn't sure he could fully mean yet. It was in the little moments that the tension became almost unbearable. Emily would sit at her corner desk in the cafe, sipping tea and watching the rain streak the windows, and wonder if he was thinking of her too. Ryan, meanwhile, would find himself standing outside the cafe, debating whether to step in or walk away, terrified that any misstep could shatter what they had so delicately built. One afternoon, Emily decided to take a walk along the riverbank, hoping that fresh air and movement would help settle the storm of thoughts inside her. The water glistened under the soft sunlight, and ducks glided lazily across the calm surface. But even the serene beauty of the scene could not distract her from the ache of hesitation. She remembered the first time she had seen Ryan smile, the easy way he laughed at small things, the way he listened without judgment. That smile had felt like a promise she didn't fully understand yet. And now thinking of it brought both warmth and uncertainty. Ryan, at the same time, was standing on the opposite side of the riverbank, unaware that she had chosen the same path. He had left the cafe earlier, pretending it was about errands. But the truth was simpler. He wanted to see her, even if only from afar. As they crossed paths, neither spoke immediately. Their eyes met, and a shared recognition passed between them, the unspoken acknowledgement of what was both present and withheld. Emily's lips curled into a small, tentative smile. Ryan returned it, slower, careful, almost as if testing whether it was safe to reveal too much. They walked together in silence for a few minutes. Side by side, the space between them filled with tension and longing. Words hovered on their lips, but neither dared speak. Every step felt heavy with possibility. Yet they were trapped in the quiet gravity of unspoken emotions. Finally, Emily broke the silence. "It's nice to see you again," she said softly, her voice barely above the whisper of the river's flowing water. Ryan nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "It is more than I thought it would be." They shared a brief, awkward laugh, both aware that the words weren't enough, that they were only brushing the surface of what they truly felt as they continued walking. The conversation gradually deepened, though still carefully measured. Emily spoke about small personal victories at work, about her attempts to pick up painting again, about how she sometimes caught herself smiling at thoughts of fleeting memories. Ryan listened, genuinely engaged, occasionally offering a quiet word of encouragement. Yet beneath their words, there was a current of longing. Each glance held more than the spoken conversation. Each pause carried the weight of things left unsaid. Emily longed to ask him to stay, to confess how much his presence meant to her. But fear held her back. What if her feelings weren't returned fully? What if speaking them would ruin the delicate balance they had found? Ryan felt the same tug of hesitation. He wanted to tell her that she had changed something deep inside him, that he could no longer imagine his days without her warmth. But past regrets whispered caution. He didn't want to repeat old mistakes, didn't want to overwhelm her with words that might sound too much. It's too soon. The river widened ahead and they stopped at a small bridge overlooking the calm water. The sunlight danced on the surface, golden and soft, illuminating their faces. Neither spoke immediately, yet both felt the silent conversation pressing between them. Emily finally broke the quiet, her voice gentle. I like that we can just be here, without rushing anything, without pretending we're different from who we are. Ryan smiled faintly, his eyes softening. I like that too. I don't want to rush. I just want to be honest with you, even if it's only in small ways. Emily nodded, understanding perfectly. She knew honesty could come in moments like this, in shared silences, in the careful attention given to one another, in the simple act of choosing to walk together for the rest of the afternoon. They stayed there, neither needing to speak. The next Sunday dawned crisp and golden, the kind of morning that made everything feel slightly magical. Emily had decided to take a long walk through the park near her apartment, hoping the fresh air would clear her restless thoughts. She wasn't expecting to see Ryan yet somehow. Her heart carried a quiet hope that she might dot as she strolled past the rows of flowering trees. She noticed a familiar figure sitting on a bench near the fountain. He was reading something in that well-worn notebook of his, the one she had first noticed weeks ago. Even from a distance, there was something comforting about the way he sat calm, yet carrying an air of quiet thoughtfulness. Emily hesitated. For a moment, she considered turning back, afraid of exposing the small tremor in her chest, the mix of excitement and nervousness that came with seeing him. But before she could retreat, he looked up. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to slow. Emily, he called softly, closing his notebook. I didn't expect to see you here. I wasn't planning to come this way, she said, her voice catching slightly. I guess neither of us planned this. He stood, brushing his hands on his pants, and smiled. That gentle, reassuring smile that had quietly become a part of her daydreams. Maybe some things aren't meant to be planned, he said. They walked together along the winding paths of the park, the sounds of birds and rustling leaves creating a quiet, safe bubble around them. Emily noticed the sunlight catching his hair and the way his expression softened whenever he looked at her. She felt that familiar warmth, but also a nervous anticipation, as if something unspoken was about to surface. Finally, Ryan stopped near a small wooden bridge overlooking the pond. The water reflected the sunlight in fractured diamonds, and the gentle breeze made the moment feel suspended in time. He turned toward her, and she felt her heart tighten. Emily, he began, his voice calm but carrying an intensity she hadn't heard before. I've been holding something back. I wasn't sure how to say it, or if I should say it at all. Emily's stomach fluttered. She had felt the tension in their silences, the weight of words unsaid. And now it seemed inevitable that the truth would finally surface. I've spent a lot of time thinking about the past, he continued, about the people I've lost and the mistakes I've made. And about you. She looked down for a moment, unsure whether to meet his gaze. Her heart felt fragile yet ready, a strange mixture of fear and hope. I care about you, Emily, more than I realized at first, and I don't want to hide it anymore. Emily's eyes filled with a quiet emotion. For weeks, she had sensed the depth of his feelings in small gestures, in the way he listened, in the careful attention he gave to her thoughts, in the silences that somehow said more than words ever could. But hearing him speak it aloud made it real, tangible, and undeniable. "Care about you too?" she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I was scared. I didn't want to admit it. But I do. I've felt it for a while." Ryan's face softened, a mix of relief and tenderness spreading across his features. "I was afraid to," he admitted. "I didn't want to rush anything or risk losing what we have. Keeping it inside hasn't made it easier." They stood there, side by side, letting the words settle between them. There was no grand declaration, no dramatic gesture, just honesty, quiet and raw. It was the kind of moment that didn't need spectacle to matter, I think. Emily said after a long pause that sometimes the hardest thing isn't falling for someone. It's being brave enough to let them know. Ryan nodded. "Exactly. And I want to be brave, Emily. I want us to see where this can go." A soft breeze rippled across the pond, rustling the leaves. The sunlight glimmered on the water, casting a warm glow that seemed to embrace them. In that moment, everything felt possible. Their past pains, their hesitations, their quiet fears, all of it seemed to converge into something delicate and precious. Emily finally allowed herself to smile fully. The kind of smile that reaches the eyes and lingers in the chest. "I'm ready," she said softly. Ryan mirrored her smile, a sense of calm and certainty settling over him. "Me too." They stayed on the bridge a little longer, just standing together, feeling the unspoken promise of something new and fragile, yet steady. It wasn't perfect, and life outside the park would still bring challenges. But for now, the emotional wall they had both kept up had begun to crumble, replaced by trust, hope, and the gentle courage of shared feelings. As they walked back along the path, their steps synchronized naturally. Emily realized that this was the turning point she had been waiting for, the moment when silence gave way to honesty, and hesitation transformed into connection. The weeks that followed felt different, lighter, calmer, and somehow warmer. Emily and Ryan had stepped into a rhythm that wasn't rushed, but intentional. They weren't perfect. Life continued to have its moments of chaos, work pressures, and small misunderstandings. Yet something remarkable had shifted. They had each other fully present, fully attentive, and that presence mattered more than anything. It started with small rituals. Mornings at the cafe where they first met became moments of quiet comfort. They would exchange smiles over steaming cups of coffee, share stories of the day ahead, and sometimes sit in silence, letting the world move around them while they simply existed together. One rainy Wednesday, Emily found herself laughing at something Ryan said about a quirky client at his office. The sound startled her. She hadn't realized how much she had missed, feeling so unguarded. Ryan caught her gaze, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "I like hearing that," he said. "I like seeing you happy." She smiled back, the warmth in her chest growing. "I like being happy too," she admitted, "and I didn't know it would feel this easy." It was in moments like these that Emily realized the depth of what had grown between them. It wasn't the fireworks of romance depicted in movies, nor was it the overwhelming intensity of a sudden attraction. It was steadiness, trust, and an emotional intimacy that had quietly blossomed over time. Ryan had changed too. He no longer carried the heavy shadow of past mistakes the way he once did. The guilt and fear that had kept him cautious were still there, but they no longer defined his actions. Now he approached each day with Emily with openness and care, mindful of her thoughts and feelings, yet unafraid to share his own. One Saturday afternoon, they decided to revisit the park where they had first confessed their feelings. The sunlight filtered through the trees in warm streaks, and the air carried the faint scent of blooming flowers. Children laughed in the distance, dogs barked playfully, and life felt simple yet meaningful. They walked side by side along the familiar path, neither needing to fill the silence with words. Every glance and gesture spoke volumes. Ryan stopped near the bridge where they had first admitted their feelings. He took a deep breath, his hand brushing hers in a tentative, gentle touch. "Emily," he said softly, "I don't know what the future will bring. We can't predict everything. But I do know this. I want to face it with you. I want us to keep building what we have, step by step, day by day." Her eyes glistened slightly, emotions welling up in a quiet rush. She squeezed his hand gently. "I want that too, Ryan. I've realized that life isn't about waiting for perfect moments. It's about choosing the right person, even when everything else is uncertain. And I choose you." They stood there for a long moment, hands entwined, the world around them fading to a soft blur. The unspoken promises, the past regrets, the cautious hesitations, all of it had led to this simple truth. Two people had found their way back to each other, ready to move forward together as they walked back through the park. They talked about ordinary things, their plans for the weekend, a new movie they wanted to see, a bakery they wanted to try. And yet, underneath these everyday conversations, there was a deep sense of peace. Life's small joys suddenly felt brighter. When shared with someone who understood you completely, Emily thought about how far she had come. She had learned to open her heart again, to let go of fear, and to trust that someone else could care for her without complicating her life with unnecessary drama. Ryan had done the same. Their pasts, full of quiet heartbreaks and lessons, had not held them back. Instead, they had shaped them into people capable of deeper love and understanding. By the time they reached the cafe where it all began, the sun had dipped low, casting golden reflections across the windows. Emily looked up at Ryan, a soft smile on her lips. "You know," she said, "you really did make my day." Ryan chuckled quietly, a warmth in his eyes that matched hers. "And you changed my life," he replied. It wasn't a dramatic declaration or a cinematic moment. It was quiet, simple, and deeply true. And in that simplicity, they found something far more powerful than any grand gesture. They found connection, understanding, and a sense of belonging that neither had expected to feel again. As they stepped out into the evening, the city lights reflecting off the wet pavement, Emily felt a quiet certainty. Love wasn't always about perfection. It wasn't about fireworks or dramatic twists. Sometimes it was about the steady, unspoken moments, the shared smiles, the gentle conversations, the courage to be vulnerable with the right person. And in Ryan, she had found all of that together. They walked home slowly, hand in hand, letting the rhythm of their steps match the newfound harmony in their hearts. Their story wasn't about a